What if the happiest face on TV was hiding the heaviest heart? Hey, I'm Sarah Reed, and today on Golden American Legends, I want to talk about Jennifer Aniston at 56. Not the memes, not just Rachel's haircut, the real woman who walked through fire in front of all of us. You know those moments when your life breaks and somehow the whole world thinks it owns the pieces? That's Jennifer's story. A fairy tale marriage, a global spotlight, and then a breakup so public the headlines felt like billboards on every corner. I remember the first time I saw one of those team shirts, Team Aniston, Team Jolie, like Heartbreak was a game. I felt protective of her, and I didn't even know her. Maybe you did too, because we saw it. The smile for the cameras, the silence in between. And underneath there was grief about love, about family, about the future she once imagined. But here's the part I love. She didn't let the story end there. She rebuilt, she redefined, she wrote her own script. Today, I'm walking you through where that strength came from, how a kid from a shaky home became America's sweetheart, survived the biggest tabloid storm of the 2000s, and learned to be happy on her own terms. Ready to see the person behind the picture? Let's roll back to where it all started. I didn't expect this. Jennifer's resilience didn't start in Hollywood. It started at home. She was born in Sherman Oaks, California, to two actors, Nancy Dow and John Aniston. Sounds glamorous, right? Except it wasn't easy. Her parents split when she was about 9. She's talked about how that divorce made life feel unstable, like the ground could shift any second. I relate to that. Those early quakes teach you how to balance fast. As a teen, she chased acting the old school way. Auditions, tiny roles, a short-lived sitcom here, a blink and you miss it appearance there, and plenty of no's. She waited tables, smiled through rejection, and kept showing up. That's the unglamorous part nobody puts on magazine covers, the grind. I've sat with archivists who remember her name popping up on call sheets again and again. She wasn't lucky. She was relentless. Then came a door marked Friends. In 1994, Rachel Green walked into Central Perk with a wedding dress and a voice we all recognized. Hopeful, messy, human. Jennifer didn't just play that, she lived it. But before the spotlight warmed her face, the cold taught her how to stand. And that skill? She'd need it. Because fame was coming, and with fame comes pressure. Next stop, the rocket ride. Fast forward, the world fell in love with Rachel, and by extension, with Jen. Awards, magazine covers, movie deals. She was everywhere. And honestly, she wore it well. I remember those interviews where she'd laugh at herself, make a joke, and look like the friend you call when you're spiraling. That's a superpower. And then the romance. Jennifer Aniston and Brad Pitt. Tell me that didn't feel like Hollywood royalty at the time. Their 2000 wedding photos looked like the closing shot of a rom-com. On paper, she had everything. #1 show, box office hits, a husband who was the guy on every poster. People thought, well, that's the end of the story. Roll credits. But inside the fairy tale, there's always a quiet room where questions live. The media started asking her that one question, over and over. When are you having a baby? She even joked about it on SNL. But jokes can be shields. From my years digging through the early 2000s coverage, I can tell you, this pressure was relentless. Even triumph starts to feel like a test when strangers judge your timeline. Still, she kept working, kept smiling. Everyone thought her life was perfect, until it wasn't. And when it cracked loud. There's a moment that still hits me. January 2005, the separation announcement. You know those statements, careful words, calm tone, but between the lines, a life is collapsing. For Jen, the future she counted on, marriage, maybe a family, suddenly felt out of reach. Around the same time, the world started whispering about chemistry on a movie set, photos on a beach, a new chapter starting for someone else while hers was ending. That sting, you don't need to be famous to know how that feels. Here's what's important. Privately, she was hurting. She later shared that she had tried to build the family people accused her of not wanting. The rumor mill framed her as a career-first woman who didn't care about kids. That was never fair. Imagine grieving a marriage and your own hopes at once, then opening a magazine and seeing your pain turned into headlines. I've talked to publicists who say that period was the harshest they'd ever seen. She kept it mostly private. Therapy, friends, quiet nights, the kind of healing that isn't photogenic. And yet that's exactly where her strength started to harden into something new. If Act 1 was innocence, this was the plot twist. The question became, who is Jennifer Aniston when everything public says she's broken? The answer was coming. I have opinions about this era, and here's one. The tabloid circus failed her and us. Overnight, it became Team Aniston versus Team Jolie, like you could vote on a person's pain with a t-shirt. The stereotypes flew. Jen, the sweet, wounded wife, Angelina, the dangerous newcomer, Brad, the prize. It was messy, and the truth got lost under flashing cameras. The worst part? The narrative about motherhood. Headlines tried to define Jen by a box she hadn't checked yet. Some said she didn't want kids, others that she couldn't. None of it was their business. But when you live in front of the world, your body and choices become public property. That's a brutal reality of fame in the 2000s. How did she respond? With restraint. A few careful interviews, a lot of silence, and meaningful work. She leaned on her friends' family and a small circle who knew the real story. I've seen the reels and the covers. I've read the media studies about that decade. The conclusion's simple. The headlines were loud, but her actions were louder. She didn't clap back, she built forward. And that leads us to the comeback no one saw coming. Here's the part I wish every heartbroken person could watch. After the storm, Jen got intentional. She kept her comedy crown, the breakup, horrible bosses, murder mystery, because laughter is medicine. Then she surprised people. The morning show. She didn't just star, she produced. Awards followed, sure, but what mattered was the message. Women's voices, power, truth. That's not an accident, that's a choice. In love, she tried again. She married Justin Theroux, and when that ended, she didn't crumble. She said, in essence, I'm okay. She started speaking more clearly about happiness defined by friendship, work, dogs, wellness, and quiet mornings. Kids, she's been candid that it didn't happen for her and that her life is still full. I respect that honesty. How about you? Does redefining the dream feel freeing or scary? She also turned outward. Charity work, advocacy, showing up when it counts. And when she lost her close friend and co-star Matthew Perry, she grieved in public with grace, reminding us she's still human, still soft, still healing. That blend of vulnerability and strength, that's legacy material. At 56, Jennifer Aniston isn't a tabloid character. She's a blueprint for rebuilding. And we're not done yet. Let me put this plainly. Jennifer Aniston's greatest plot twist wasn't the breakup. It was the life she built after it. She took a script that said sad, single, discarded, and rewrote it as centered, joyful, independent. That's revolutionary in a culture that tells women their worth is a ring and a birth announcement. Today, she's working on projects that matter to her, loving her chosen family, and setting boundaries with the press. She's the friend who brings you soup when you're sick, and also the boss who runs a set. She can still make us laugh like Rachel, and then cut to the bone with a single honest sentence about grief. I've spent a decade studying these arcs, and Jen stands out because it's not about revenge, it's about renewal. So here's my question for you. What part of your story are you ready to rewrite? Drop it in the comments, and if this resonated, hit like so more people see it. This is Golden American Legends, and we're here to remind you that behind every glossy photo is a human heart that breaks and mends. One more beat, and we'll wrap. If you've ever had your life judged by people who didn't know you, Jennifer Aniston's journey is your mirror. She grew up in uncertainty, found the biggest stage on TV, lost the love story the world invested in, and then did the bravest thing. She chose herself. At 56, the tragedy isn't that she didn't fit a template. The tragedy would have been letting strangers write her ending. She didn't. I'm Sarah Reed, and this is Golden American Legends. If you love stories that turn pain into power, you're in the right place. Subscribe, ring the bell, and join our little archive-obsessed corner of the internet. I promise we keep it warm and real here. What episode should we do next? A legend you love, a moment you want unpacked. Tell me below. Thanks for watching. Thanks for feeling this with me. And remember, your happiness doesn't have to look like anyone else's. See you in the next one.